Hello, everyone. We are back. We have another panel right after. So Dalton initially reached out to do his thing separate. We're going to go through a full thing now with Arti, Dalton, Ashley, and Tori, and I'll be moderating. So first of all, thank you for joining me. Now, Dalton asked a really important question in the pre-room. Dalton, what was it?
Twitch chat, you should answer as well. But I asked the crew here, would they rather be chilling or vibing, and why?
We're going to go in a circle like on the heavy overlays. So Arti, Dalton, Ashley, and then Tori in order.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess I'd rather be vibing because if I'm chilling out, that doesn't exactly mean that I'm 100% like relaxed, or is vibing kind of just feels like you're relaxed and enjoying your time, so I guess I'm vibing.
Solid.
Let's see.
Dalton.
I'm next. I'd rather be chilling, but I feel like I'm always vibing. Like I do so. I'm like always always on the move. So I just want to like, I'm just chilling. I'd rather be doing that because I'm always vibing.
Ashley.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with vibing mainly because my brain doesn't ever let me do chilling. And I feel like with vibing, at least I can be like having a good time, but it could still be chaos, you know? And so I feel like that's something that I can actually do. Whereas it's like, oh, I sat down in a chair with a lemonade. My brain's never gonna let me do that. No.
And then Tori.
I agree with well, kind of the same thing. My brain doesn't let me chill, but when I can, I like to be chilling.
Okay.
Oh.
And then kind of the way it's going to work for the panel, guys, is we're going to just ask questions and go in a circle like this. And if you guys have any follow-ups or want to riff off some topic or just continue the conversation, please do so. Don't have to stick to questions necessarily. They're just here to start conversations. So first, we're going to random check all of you. So who are you? What do you do? What is your identity? Arti?
Same order throughout this?
Yes, same order.
Okay.
All right. My name is Artemis Arthur Rain. I do a lot of kind of just random things over at Boise State University currently. I work on production predominantly as a caster, but I also fill in on Overwatch, and then anytime we do quote-unquote special events, I'm normally thrown in on a random game I know nothing about, and I try my best, which means I get slaughtered. My pronouns are they, them, and identify as non-binary, have for about 2.5 years now, and I'm currently trying to get into school for my doctorate.
You have a sick name, by the way. Usually when I say like my full name, usually it's like, oh, it's cool because my name's Dalton Storm McGee. But then I heard your name, I'm like, they have Rain. That's awesome. It's like Storm, but Rain. I'm Dalton Storm McGee. I am the head coach of esports for District 186 Springfield Public Schools here in Springfield, Illinois. I am a high school science teacher here at Lanphier High School. I am the chief competition officer for the Illinois High School Esports Association. So basically, the buck stops with me on anything competitive in the state for esports. And then I'm a former NASIV Scholastic Fellow. So that was writing esports centered curriculum for the general classroom. And then I was also the head coach of esports at Lincoln Lane Community College when they started their program the first year, and we won the NJCAA Rocket League National Championship that first year. So basically, my esports background is compete, no chill, despite my answer from before. But yeah, teaching in video games, that's me.
Yeah, so I'm Ashley Marie Weaver. I chose the most basic of basic names when I came out. So I'm male to female transgender. My pronouns are she, her. I'm 23. I recently graduated from Grandview University after 3 years in their esports program on scholarship for Overwatch. I've been around amateur and collegiate esports the last 4 years as a coach, manager, graphic designer, video editor, caster, you name it. I've probably done some form of it. And yeah, I'm really passionate about esports, and it's what I want to do in the future. But right now, I'm honestly just trying to find any sort of job because the job market is rough.
Feel that.
Yeah.
All right. I'm Tori, 22. I'm studying psychology. I've been working in esports since 2017. I started as like a volunteer production coordinator, and I only recently started doing production or broadcast like full time. So yeah, that's pretty much about it.
Okay, awesome. And I really appreciate all of you being here, and many of you kind of said yes, without me actually explaining anything for this. So the context for this whole broadcast actually is I just like DM people, hey, you want to be on a stream, and they all just said yes before I could actually tell them anything. Okay, so I wanted to kind of start with what is your history in esports? Where do you start, and how do you get to where you are now? So, Arti?
Okay. So my history with esports is the spring before the Boise State esports program even became like an actual, even just club thing happening when we brought in the TESPA team and everything. I was in Doc Haskell's education technology class. He's the director of esports at Boise State. And he brought up this idea of doing esports at Boise State and showed us this documentary called Heroes of the Dorm. I saw that. I absolutely fell in love with the idea of actually competing. I have not, at this point, picked up a competitive game since I was younger when I used to compete in Call of Duty Black Ops.
Hey!
My older brother was actually a MLG Halo player at this time before he gave it up to just pursue his work in mechanical engineering. But that summer, I actually picked up a game he showed us in class, which was ironically Overwatch. I also had throat surgery that summer, so I was insanely sick, couldn't really leave my house, and I was like, hey, I'm going to start streaming myself as I learned to play this game. It was, for lack of a better term, a complete cluster. I was horrible at it. I tried my best. I ended up joining the club team in the fall because I was like transitioning from console to PC. I stuck with the club team for a year, and then the following fall, I was like, hey, Doc, I'm actually try out for the team. I'm platinum. Everyone else on the team, is diamond and masters. I'm like, gonna make this work and do my best. I actually managed to make the team and had been on the team since from then until, well, like last year when I officially, quote unquote, retired from the competitive scene, which was a blessing and a half because, oh boy, trying to do competitive esports in grad school was a bit of a struggle bus for sure. And if anyone ever hits that bus, I'm more than happy to be your driver.
Nice. I first started competitively gaming in, I would say, 2006, which was Star Wars Battlefront 2 on PlayStation 2. That was my OG esport, so to speak. Like my whole life, I grew up, and Cora and I joke about this all the time. I have no interest in games unless they're beating somebody else in the game. Like I don't want to play Skyrim or any story game. Like I want to beat you. Mario Party, Mario Kart, Smash, let's do it. That was my whole childhood. But Star Wars Battlefront 2 was the first one that I actually got involved in a clan as a teenager and would do clan battles and make some money. And like my biggest brag is that we had an undefeated record in all clan battles and space battles. I'm like nuts at that game, still in space for no reason whatsoever. But then I went to college. I started playing Overwatch, similar to what Arti said, because my friends we were having a LAN party at one of my friends' basements, and they like, hey, Dalton, you should try Overwatch. I was like, that doesn't really look like a game I'm gonna like, and I refused to play it for weeks. And then finally we had this LAN party, and I had a blast that night. And they did not know the monster they just created, and it was like my life for a year. I loved Overwatch, and I went to the Overwatch League the last semester of college over in Los Angeles, and to see a week of matches. I'm a big Outlaws fan. And I was just so impressed by the production, what it could be. Like my brain was like, high school, this would be cool. I want to teach, but like we could do esports. This would be awesome. And I have no memory of how it all really happened. It happened so fast. But I student taught at one school in the district, started a club, 120 kids tried out, more than any sport had at the school. Got hired at another school in the district, started to try to run 2 clubs at once, both of the 120 kids trying out. And then the third school, I had literally like hate mail from kids from the third school on Instagram. Like, why don't we have esports? When do you bring in esports to Springfield? And so we kind of combined them into a co-op, which is now the Capitals, and create a new esports identity in the district. And Cora knows because I kind of beat Glomet around a little bit. But
buddy, we beat you in person in our facility, and you gave me a death glare as you walked out. Don't start with me.
Yeah, it was Springfield was like really apparent, or not apparent. That's not the word I want to use. It was really relevant quickly, and so esports for me has just been like channeling that inner 5-year-old that hates losing into like a way to give kids community and like get to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so yeah, Overwatch is a bad game. That's what I'll end that with.
Yeah. So first off, Star Wars Battlefront 2 on PS2 might be one of the greatest games I've ever played.
I think it is.
Yeah, like just hands down. I miss it. But yeah, so I grew up playing video games and watching esports, but I never had a computer growing up, so I never really played like your League of Legends, that sort of thing. I played single player games my entire life, and even up through high school, right as I went into college, is when I finally picked up Overwatch, and this was for PlayStation, because again, didn't have a computer, and I sucked at it. I'm gonna be real, I sucked at it really bad. It took me actually when I dropped out of my first semester of college, because I initially went to college to be a pastor, before I came out. I ended up withdrawing, and then when I was visiting schools, I visited a school in middle of nowhere, Missouri, and they were like, "Oh, you play video games? Do you want $14,000 to come play video games for us?" And I was like, "Sure." So I started playing Overwatch. I spent that entire summer just grinding from silver to diamond on a crappy PC, and since then I've gone from playing Overwatch both at that school and now at Grandview. To also, I coached Tier 3 Overwatch during the GOATS meta before, Rollock happened and everything kind of got. But since then, I've bounced around. I've casted for the U.S. Army Esports. I've interned at different places. And yeah, it's just, I kind of got thrown into something that I was like, oh, I like watching it. And then it was like, oh, but here's a bunch of money, randomly just get thrown into it. And so it was like, okay, cool, I guess. And I miss Overwatch for what it used to be. I don't think it is what it was anymore, but I miss the good old days. I'm still wearing my London Spitfire alternate jersey because I think Overwatch used to be really great. But oh, don't give me that. Don't give me that. Outlaws fan?
I have to ask you, do you know who Squash is?
I've heard the name.
Reinhardt guy. So when I went to, I gave a thumbs down because when I went to the Overwatch League, Squash is the biggest Spitfire fan in the world. In fact, they actually acknowledge him as their official hype man. And he wears this big Reinhardt mask and massive Spitfire jersey and just like everything you could think of. And my entire understanding of the Spitfire is picturing Squash just like in front of the Overwatch stage like this with a Reinhardt mask on. Your Spitfire fans are hype. They're funny.
Yeah, I'm not actually I never really aligned with one particular team. I was more so a fan of, I watched Overwatch before it went to the Overwatch League. So like when the Rogue guys went to Dallas and to the Valiant, I cheered for the Valiant because I liked Sun and Unko. So it was really just what players did I like. That's who I cheered for. But I like Spitfire Season 1 was an insane roster. And I think there's been some hype moments in the Overwatch League since. It's just the game itself has gone downhill, which makes me sad.
Tori, you're up.
Okay, so I grew up literally only playing RuneScape and like Webkins, all that. I never really actually played like competitive video games or anything, or like multiplayer, I guess it's called. And then one day, I had some friends that I met on League after I started playing, and they were playing in a tournament, and so I joined the Discord server. Just to like watch and support them. And then there was like this announcement in the server that went out, and it was like, does anyone want to work production? And I had no idea what that meant, but I wasn't really doing anything at the time because I was still in high school and I was kind of bored. But I also was just learning League, and I really liked it, and I liked the team environment of the game. So I volunteered for that, and they taught me how to do production and just be a producer. And so I worked.
Oh, and she disconnected right now.
No.
Oh,
She'll be back in about 10 seconds. This happens all the time.
Okay, Dalton, you got any other brain teasers?
A brain teaser or like what are we doing here?
The question like you opened with.
I've just recently started doing Eternal Return as well.
Back.
Oh, she's
There we
back.
go.
Okay, you disconnected there briefly.
Where did it leave off?
Knowing what
started learning
production was and enjoying it.
Yeah.
I have no clue what I said 5 seconds
Okay,
ago.
so Tori, what do you currently do observation for, and what have you done?
Okay, so I'm currently doing Wild Rift, Eternal Return, TFT, Legends of Runeterra. I think that's it.
Okay,
So I've just been working on those.
awesome. So the whole point of this whole broadcast is talking about Pride initiatives and Trapper Project and all that stuff. So I want to kind of start then looking at all of your stories, because part of this panel is talking about your story. And so, what is your relationship to like Pride initiatives, and kind of what's your coming out story, if you're willing to share?
Okay, so I kind of took a dumb approach to coming out after my first attempt to talk to someone close to me went downhill. That person, though they never outed me or anything, after I started discussing the topic with them and like broaching the subject with them, they did cut off all communication about a month after. And then 2 months later, I had, up till this point, been dealing with a lot of gender dysphoria. I had depression, anxiety, still do, but part of what I felt like was weighing down onto those, making it worse, was the fact that I had still been closeted and not talked to anybody about it. But because of those things, I'm very much so also horrible at taking things slow. I'm like, I might as well just, jump right in and take care of it at this point. After dipping my toe in, it felt like I touched lava, as opposed to, it being just kind of slowly but surely things will work out. So I texted my mom at like 7 in the morning and I was like, hey, Mom, I'm about to come out to everyone. I would like your support. My mother, was just completely caught off guard, and we had a short conversation prior to me just deciding to hop on social media and announce it to the world, because I was like, I'm 8 hours away from everybody that I know. There's no way I can call everyone up one-on-one and be like, hey, I'm coming out, so here's what you need to know and all that jazz. So I just posted it to my social medias after that. My parents weren't the most understanding nor accepting at the very beginning. My mother, in fact, actually unfortunately laughed at me over the phone, more because that is her response when she stresses out, and more than anything else. And I also, that same day, discussed it with my esports director, Doc, who I also see as a father, and then 2 days later dropped it in our Discord to announce it to everyone as well. I definitely can say in the 2 years that I've been out, it's been a little bit of a struggle, because I've always been more of the quiet person when it comes to correcting people about things and stuff, even if it's something that I know my stuff when it comes to a certain subject. I won't correct someone in front of other people because I don't want to make them feel bad in any shape or form. And so when I get misgendered in public, I still struggle to correct people. However, my significant other and partner will be like, hey, yo, their pronouns are they, them, not she, her. Try not to do that again. And typically there's profuse apologies thereafter. And I feel bad because I just pseudo put someone on the spot. I also walk around with they, them earrings on now to help fix that situation too. When it comes to the coming out as a whole, though, it was very interesting, because with my graduation, I didn't graduate in 2020 with my undergrad. Well, I did and didn't. I didn't walk because it was COVID-19, so I didn't have a party. I didn't see my family, and because of COVID, still haven't seen the majority of my family because I have very poor health. But a lot of my family members did come up to Boise, Idaho for my graduation for my master's, and all of them actually used my preferred name, which made me extremely happy, except for one person who, when I spoke to them one-on-one, used the excuse of, I haven't really seen you much in 2 years, so I didn't have time to practice. But I did not turn around and say, well, if other people can do it, why can't you? Because it was already pulling teeth with some people in order to get them to recognize and understand my situation. And I do also understand that some people, even though it's been 2 years, are going to continue to grieve the person that I once was, as opposed to realizing I'm still that person. I'm just asking you to view me as I view myself, as opposed to how you thought I was. And so the grieving process for some takes a long time, and I'm not trying to force the issue with them, but at a certain point, I know I'm going to have to be like, hey, if this is a very, very big problem for you at this point, it's been this amount of time, I think it's time we go get some professional help between the two of us and go see a counselor together. But I'm hoping I don't have to reach that point with those people. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I would say I don't want to take up too much of their time in this panel, so we can talk more stuff, because I just kind of went through the story at 6 o'clock. So go back and watch it. But long story short, Jehovah's Witness, not a Jehovah's Witness. That was the story. And I do want to echo on what Arti said, because one of the main themes that Cora and I discussed was other people, and where you can finally draw that line of, it is not my responsibility to drag them somewhere. And Artie's right. If someone won't, at some point they won't. I mean, it's as easy as, people go by their middle names. They call them their middle names. It blows my mind that it's for some reason difficult all of a sudden. I am very interested to hear the stories of the others on the panel, because I am a cis gay man, and in a lot of ways, I think cis gay men, particularly white cis gay men, tend to be one of the more problematic corners of our community. But I'm really interested to hear everybody else's perspective. But go back and watch. I don't want to take their time. I want to hear from them on this topic.
Well, that's first off, that's very generous of you. But yeah, so I was raised in a middle-class conservative Christian household. I moved around a lot, but every single thing was suburban, conservative Christian. We always found a church, that sort of thing. Like I said before, I went to school initially for college to be a pastor. I went out to California Baptist University, and I was in their program to be a pastor, which is one of the toughest programs for, like a religious degree in the country. And during that time, I never really struggled with anxiety before then, and I had really bad anxiety to the point where I was going to the hospital thinking I was going to die. I didn't know why. I had good friends. I had good grades. Like, I didn't have anything that was like super stressing me out in my mind. And so I ended up having to withdraw from my first semester. I came home. And during my time at home, I started talking with, ironically, my ex from before, from high school, who had come out as, I believe the term they used was gender fey. I'm not up to date on what they currently identify as, but it was a form of gender nonconforming. I'm not entirely sure on it. But they really helped me walk through the process of, I had always done some level of like cross-dressing, that sort of thing. Like, I'd always sort of knew, but I was so deep in the like denial about it with the Christian upbringing that it wasn't even anywhere on my radar. And so they gave me a ton of great resources to look into it and that sort of thing. And like, I started reading about it, and it was like a weight was kind of lifted off my shoulders, right? I had spent the last 3 months with such bad anxiety, and then I knew why that anxiety was happening, and I knew why it was there, and suddenly I was like, this is who I am. I tried, I think, for 2 weeks to go as gender fluid to just see if like maybe I wanted to stay on the, guy side of things, and I was like, no, I haven't had a single day where I was like, I want to identify as a man. That's not me. And so I came out to a bunch of my close friends, and they were super respectful of that. And then I'm not great at hiding my emotions, and so my parents eventually bugged me enough to be like, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? And I had a whole-on breakdown and was like, yeah, I'm trans. And my older brother had come out as trans and then gone back to being a cis white male. And so like that was like a whole thing that happened years before. So I knew what the reaction was going to be. They weren't going to be supportive. I knew they weren't going to, be there for me. My parents, I love them. They have supported me through college. They have supported me financially. They've done a lot of great things for me. But as far as supporting me for who I am, they have not done that. With that, they've taken me to a Christian gender therapist, and it's really hard because one of the things I said while I was there is that they would rather have had a dead son than a happy daughter, because that's the point I was at, and it still hasn't really changed. My mother has gotten slightly better about it, and they came out for my graduation in May, and I told them, look, you're coming out for graduation. I'm not changing who I am. I'm going to be my preferred name when they call it on stage. My degree is going to be under that. I'm going to dress the way I want. And they were like, okay. It was clear they were uncomfortable. They still didn't name me while they were there. And at some point I recognized that I'm going to have to completely cut them off unless something changes, but I'm not going to take the time to be like, hey, you need to change. I said, look, this is who I am. This is where the line is. We can keep trying to have conversations if you want, but they stopped trying to have conversations, and I said, I'm not changing. This is how it is, and I'm not going to keep trying to force you to be something you're not, and I'm not also going to allow you to force me to be something. I'm very blessed to have the support system I do have. I've dealt with a lot of harassment and that sort of thing being in Iowa and formerly Missouri. Not great states for being transgender, but I've gotten a lot of respect from my peers online, and I really didn't have any issues with the people here at Grandview outside of, your occasional football player yelling the F slur across campus at you. But that's was kind of to be expected. It's Iowa, but for the most part, I'm very blessed. There's a long way to go in a lot of things, and I've dealt with a lot of transphobia in other areas of esports. But as far as like my particular journey and those close to me, for the most part, I've been very, very lucky compared.
For me, I don't really have my own coming out story, but I wanted to, I guess, talk about from the outside, or like, I guess having just people around me that have their own stories, and even like in the broadcast community, it's very rare. I find that you see pastors or like hosts, analysts, whatever, that are in the community, and it's almost like people are like afraid to bring these people on because they're afraid of like Twitch chat because it gets brutal no matter like who you are. So being in broadcast, I've always tried to, I guess, make that more of a normal thing that people see, which has not gone over too well with some people. But I know earlier they were talking about the TFT and the whole thing with Riot making um, a statement about people being rude in the chat to non-binary people that were on the stream. But I think the main thing that I try to do is just educate people, or do my best to educate myself too, and just try to always make a welcoming, positive space for everyone, and just make it more of a normal thing, so it's not like people in the community are like somebody else. Like they're just normal people, they're humans too, and they shouldn't be treated any different. So I try to do my very best to make that more thing and just speak out and, like be there to support someone who's maybe getting harassed or, struggling the best that I can.
Thank you all for kind of going into your stories. I know it's challenging sometimes to talk about this in certain contexts and what the struggles you faced. And this kind of ties into my next question of, and this is kind of a free-flowing discussion, so it's not very rigid, but if you could go back to when you were younger or when you first came out, what support do you wish you had? And then how have you seen initiatives to give that support to others? And what are your thoughts on how to create a more inclusive space as a whole? Because our whole goal of doing this is beyond raising money, it's raising awareness. And so I want to talk about more just being inclusive as a whole. And then what support do you wish you had that you can also give others? And this can go any order when I'm doing. I'll start just kind of free-flowing discussion.
It was you mentioning that question, what would you tell your younger self? That was you telling me in these DMs that was a Trevor Project question. I actually didn't know that because I'm a massive RuPaul's Drag Race fan. And every last episode before Ru picks a champion, she asks them all that, shows the picture, the baby picture. And so like I've had that moment where I've thought like, what would I even tell him? And like I think I would just tell him like, you're a king. And like you're like, don't let people tell you you're not. And what I lacked back then was confidence. Like I think the one thing I majorly lacked was confidence, which of course Cora knows I now have in abundance to a fault sometimes. but it was just a matter of like knowing who you are. And I think that's where the confidence stems from, is finally being able to look in yourself in the mirror and say like, this is who I am, and I love that person. And I wish the younger me had the same love for himself that the current me does. Because it would have all been much more easy when there wasn't love in other places to have that self-sustaining love. It's love is a lot like hope in the sense that it's one of those emotions it's purely intrinsic, and it can only be created or taken away by yourself. And so I wish that I would have had more love for myself, and I would tell him to love himself, and probably to stop wearing the belts that the front of the belt drooped down on your pant leg, because that wasn't cool, and nobody wishes you wore that. So that's what I would have told myself.
Yeah, I think for me, I would have told her just to not let them take your emotions away. One of the hardest parts of coming out for me has been trying to get back in touch with the me that actually does feel things and does, allows herself to feel all the emotions of going through a transition and going through the dysphoria and the ups and the downs, because I've spent so many years before transitioning, that sort of thing, and repressing myself and repressing so many of my feelings, because let's be honest, guys are taught, you know, don't show your emotions. Uh, that you get so much of that, and that when you come out, that now it's just I only see the negatives. And even then, if I do feel sadness or I do feel joy, anything that might be any sort of emotion, it can often just manifest itself as anger, because that's the only emotion I've known for so many years. It's just everything is, oh, if you're a guy and you're upset, well, you're probably just angry, or take it out, go out on the football field, or do this, right? Like that's what's intrinsically just put into you for years, and it's been really hard to break out of that. And I think if I hadn't gone through that and I had been able to just stay true to just like feeling my emotions, that um, I would have been in a much better place much sooner.
So for me, this is gonna sound a little weird, but I wish the best friend that I managed to meet through playing Overwatch, we ended up actually moving in together and being roommates through her undergraduate career until she has since moved to California. Um, I I probably would have told myself it's gonna be okay even if you choose to come out now, or if you hang on to this, there's going to be people that you know that you can go to and turn to and trust. It's just that those people may not be in your life just yet. I also grew up in a very suburban and kind of lower class neighborhood, unfortunately. Lots of predominantly white conservative people where I lived as well. I also grew up in a family where a lot of the male people in my family were also pastors, so it was difficult to feel as though I did have a safe space to even bring it up to anybody other than my older brother, who unfortunately left my life when he turned 18 years old, and I had no contact with him for an extended period of time. So, like, my one confidant for a very long time was gone. I apologize if I start crying because this is not something I normally talk about. But growing up as I did, I kind of always was the mediator in a lot of things, and so I never felt like it was an okay place for me to talk about how I was feeling or my problems. But what I wish I had told myself back then was no matter what happens, other people's emotions are not your own and they are not your fault. And I wish I had learned how to deal with that and how to experience that at a younger age, so that as I've gone through this process and as I was leading up to this process, I would feel a lot more confident in myself to do so, as opposed to feeling like I had hurt all of these people through coming out, as opposed to these people are feeling hurt because of how they perceived me versus how I want to be perceived. And that is something that they will have to overcome, but that is not my own fault. There is something that I need to help them realize in themselves that is missing, and that link could be the fact that they don't fully understand what it feels like to be in the closet, or it could be the fact that they just feel as though they've truly lost someone, and that will just come with time. But that was one of the biggest things that held me back for a long time, was the fear of hurting and disappointing my family because I wanted to come out of the closet. And I really wish I had, like, back then, my best friend who I have now, because she's the one who taught me that, like, other people's emotions are their own, and it's okay to want to love yourself and ask people to love you as that person, and that will help you grow so much more. I really wish I had someone like that when I was younger, but since I've met her, I've actually, like, learned how to do that, and I've been that person for others. And when I came out, I had other students come to me and talk to me about their situation. So I know students that are not fully out yet or in the process of doing so, and they appreciate having someone like me around. And since I didn't have that opportunity to have that one person, I just want to continue to be that person for others through esports and through the people in my life.
I really appreciate all of you sharing that. Big hug to all of you, especially you, Artie. It means a lot that you guys are willing to talk about this, because it is difficult to really contextualize what we would have wanted to hear for ourselves. Because I had a friend bring this up recently. A lot of times, the ways we comfort and talk to others is what we wish we had. We wish we had as especially a child. And so it's means a lot you guys are willing to share, and big hug to all of you. It's I know it's hard. And
Artie brings up a really important
Yeah.
point, if I could interject,
Go
Cora.
ahead, please.
I think it was thematic throughout all that.
Yeah.
And that is this idea that not only do a lot of times we blame ourselves for how other people feel, but we will go extensive efforts to then fix that for them.
And you and I talk about that too.
Right. And it was something I didn't touch on is I dated a lot of girls because I still believed the teachings of the witnesses. We talked about that. I tried to convince myself, I know I like guys, but I could marry a woman anyway so that my family would not be let down, because it's not like I hated my family. And Artie mentioned like the things we'll do to try to convince them it's okay, or convince ourselves we could be what they want us to be. That is a massive hump to get over when it comes to coming out. Like everyone's story has that spot where they tried to be the other version of themselves for the people around them. And the shorter that time period is, the less healing needs to occur, frankly, I think. And like, I apologize to all those girlfriends I had because I was super gay, but like we all do that. And I think that's important to say, because I think it's okay and normal when that happens. And people shouldn't beat themselves up for that feeling or those inclinations, because that is a natural step in this process for most of us, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely, because I went through that same thing, right? Like I mentioned it a little bit, but I had a brother who came out as trans and then like went back. And then, you know, growing up with two older brothers, both of whom have had different issues, I was molding myself to be this perfect cis white het male Christian, gonna be a pastor, everything my parents could want from a child. And it wasn't me. But I was forcing myself into that bubble because, you know, I didn't want to hurt anybody. I've seen the hurt that had already been caused from other issues, and I didn't want to hurt anybody. But you're not wrong for that. I think that's a good point to bring up. You're not wrong for doing that. It's something that I think all of us probably go through. But you know, being yourself is important, and I think it's you get there eventually.
And I think following up on that, it's when we try to talk with others who are maybe going through our same steps or something similar, this context always comes up of, oh, what if this other person reacts poorly? Oh, what if X person in my life reacts poorly? I still have that case. I haven't told my grandparents because I've been explicitly told not to. So I think this idea of coming out as this whole big deal is hard for us. But I do want to talk about how can we build a better environment for those around us to make it easier for them, to make it more inclusive, to make it better for them. Because in the end, now that we are, as Dalton and I were talking about, the elder gays in the community, where
I am 27
and I'm 26, you boomer.
You're both boomers.
Yeah, I'm literally still Gen
Sarah,
Z.
shush. I'm 25. Okay.
Don't call me
Get me out.
Okay,
I
so
know that being gay, like, you're already old at 30 when you're gay. I get it, but like, we're thriving until we're 50, and then we can start talking about slowing down.
Okay, so we're all really the elder gays in the community, where we've been out, we've been public, and people then look to us for guidance. Well, how can we guide these people on a path that's not necessarily our own? A lot of times people ask me, like, how do I do this? I'm like, I have no idea. I'm not non-binary. And it's like, or like, I had a trans math student who would talk to me every day. He's like, how do I do this? I'm like, I have no idea, man. Honestly, I'll go Google it for you, but I have no idea. And so really, I want to talk about how can we create a better environment for those around us who may need our help? And what do you see as things we can do to be more inclusive, not just in word, but in action?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing, like, obviously there's other things, but I think the biggest thing, I think Dalton touched on this a little bit during his thing before this panel, is just being visible, right? Like, I obviously I can only speak to what you've told me, Cora, but I know that, like, a big thing for you when you met me was at Gateway Legends was that I was visible. I was out being myself and dressing the way I wanted to and presenting the way I wanted to. And for you, that was like kind of a big thing, and it helped you reached out to me, right?
Yeah.
But I've had multiple people that have either seen me through school, or they've seen me through events, or they've seen me just online, that have reached out and that I've been able to talk to and walk through things. But just by being visible, they felt that they had a safe place to come to, a safe person they could come talk to, and they've realized that there are people like me that have gone through similar things that I've gone through and that are going to be able to help give me guidance. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? Because for me, I didn't have that. I didn't have someone that was visible to me. All I saw was the negative side of things from what I had been indoctrinated into, but I never got to see my brother when they were out, or a trans person when they were out being themselves, their truest selves, because that's not something that existed in my tiny church bubble. It just wasn't there, right? So seeing that in our teachers, seeing that in our leaders, seeing that in our communities, I think it's just absolutely crucial.
Also, we have a responsibility to ourselves before we have a responsibility to others. We've been saying that all night. If, like, cis white gay man, there are a lot of people in our community that I can't even begin to understand what it's like to be them, right? Like, I could go to Ashley and say, can you, in your best TLDR way, tell me what it's like to be trans? And that is a really hard question to answer. I know it is, because I've asked it. Like, full disclosure, I used to be engaged, and my ex-fiance has transitioned after the fact, and found that through a place of, like, starting to do drag and then finding self-identity and then transition, and now it is female and is thriving, and I'm not with him anymore. But I know that if I genuinely needed to understand something, I can say, hey, with love and humility, I'm asking, please let me understand what this is like, or at least give some context, because I'd never fully understand. We have a responsibility to ask those in our community so we can better fulfill the needs of others that need us, right? I can only speak to what it's like to be a cis gay man. I know that experience, for me at least, but I don't know what it's like to be non-binary. I don't know what it's like to be trans, and it's both insulting and arrogant for anyone in our community to say they know what it's like for all the letters. So I think it's really important for us to, before we try to go help, take a step back and say, what can I do to better understand or learn from someone else that does not share the experience I share?
So one of the things that I have had a lot of people talk to me about is the frustrations and hurt that they feel through coming out, or when someone misidentifies them, or just trying to feel accepted as themselves even before they've come out. And when they come to me sharing stories of bad situations that have occurred that have caused a lot of pain for them, a lot of times I feel as though people expect me to also get angry for them. And of course, my knee-jerk reaction is like, who do I need to throw hands at? But in reality, what I try to teach people is the idea of something known as nonviolent communication by Marshall B. Rosenberg. It's something that I've preached about in esports for a very long time, and that is something I carry over to my day-to-day life. And it's, when someone hurts you like this, it once again turns to that it's not your fault that they are hurting you. It's something within themselves that they don't understand, something that they need met that they haven't had met just yet. And they can be angry. Let them be angry, but don't let that anger come onto you and feel as though you need to fix that anger. And when I express that emotion to a lot of people, or those feelings and thoughts to a lot of people, at first it's very, very confusing, but it's like, you're asking them to not judge you, and in turn, when they get upset with you, you are then judging them for not accepting you. So you're asking for something that you yourself are not giving. And being very open to the idea that there is going to be people who get upset. There are going to be people that aren't going to accept you is difficult, but it's something that I try to help people understand, because it's just, our world as it stands now, there's a lot of people out there who will not accept what I refer to as the alphabet mafia. And so unfortunately, you can choose to try and, talk to those people, but if they're going to dig their heels in, they're not going to change their ways. And so they need to go on their own journey of self-discovery and figure out, why am I so uncomfortable with someone identifying this way? Why am I uncomfortable with this person not, identifying as the presenting gender they were born with? That is not your job to teach that person those concepts, those ideas. You don't need to be the enlightening deity to that person. They need to be that for themselves. And so instead, I teach a lot of people to focus on how they're feeling. Like, why did this response from this person hurt you? And it's typically, it's like, did it make you feel invalidated? Because if it did, I want you to know that I see you. I see all the effort you're putting in. I see you as the person you want to be and the person that you truly are. And please do not let this one person that said something stupid to you change and set back how you're feeling, all the progress you've made. And I try to really, really focus on those good feelings that those people have, because it makes me so sad when one of my friends is hurt, because, you know, at the end of the day, I care about people. And I don't like seeing people sad, because when someone I love is sad, I feel sad, even though I'm like, don't make the emotion your own. Don't make it your own. It's how I am. And so if I can help that person, even if I don't understand their situation, I can still understand sadness. I can still understand pain, and helping that person recognize what caused it and talking them through that sadness to find the happiness in the situation is just something that I try to teach everyone, and that I will continue to try to teach in our community. And echoing what you guys said, also, you know, being someone who's out and being public about it, being proud about it, definitely helps a bit, because it makes people a bit more comfortable to come to me when they experience those like negative situations.
And Corey, you mentioned something too that that we didn't really go this direction, but it was said, and it was like being visible to other people in your life. This might be a hot take, and I'm curious what the other two think about it, and Tori as well. But like I've always used like the Hippocratic Oath to guide who I'm telling, and you know we think about our real old grandparents, right? That so the Hippocratic Oath, of course, do no harm. I don't think that it is always the right course of action for every single person to tell everyone in their life, right? And to say to someone else you need to fully come out to everyone is wrong, as much as it is to say you can't come out. And so everybody that feels like, well, I told my friends but not my family, maybe that's what's right now for you, because you do no harm to yourself or to them. And if you love someone, like it was already mentioned, you do have a certain empathy for wanting to protect their feelings. It's okay to be empathetic, and it's okay to make a choice that does not harm that person, so long as it is not harming you. Right? You can't harm yourself because of not harming them. So I did want to at least throw out there, like, if you've got that great grandma that's just like the sweetest old lady in the world, she's 97, would keel over if she found out you were gay. Like, you don't have to tell her you're gay. You can just go over there and be with grandma. Like,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Actually, I want to chip on this, even though I'm hosting, because I had the phrase for this previously. So I had a long debate in my head about coming out on Facebook because I had family there. I just didn't want to deal with it. And then I had this thought of, like, me coming out is a courtesy, not an obligation.
Mm.
It is a courtesy to them.
I like that.
In either case, I am still out to those I care about because I talk to them first. Telling anyone else is just a courtesy.
No, I like that a lot. One of the biggest things I've had issue with, going off of what Dalton was saying, is that I've seen, especially with social media more and more, especially when you have days like National Coming Out Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that I keep seeing these sentiments of that you should come out. It's not okay to stay in the closet. Why are you still hiding that? We don't all have the same situation. My parents don't accept me for who I am, but they're not violent towards me. They're still in my life. They still want to be in my life to some degree. How that intersects is a different story, but it's not violent. It's not them kicking me out of the house. It's not, abusive in any way, shape, or form. But others don't have that. Others, if they tell their parents, they could get abused, they could die, they could get kicked out, right? Like, they could get ostracized. There's so many aspects to it that it is incredibly wrong to say that you need to come out to everybody, right? For me, I'm myself. I'm unapologetically myself. Everybody who I've needed to come out to that could be harmed by me coming out, I'm out to, right? We've done the whole deal, we've done the dance, but I'm not everybody, right? If you don't want to come out to somebody because you don't feel safe, or you think, it's the great grandma situation, don't do it. You don't owe anybody anything. And I think it's so important that we recognize that you do not let people pressure you into doing something that you're not comfortable with and that could put you in danger, because that is the biggest thing. As much as you might see, oh, that person's visible, I want to be visible too, that's going to put you in danger. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do to protect yourself so you can be visible later, instead of being visible now and getting harmed.
And that's not agreed upon. The reason I brought that up is this is not an agreed upon argument in our community. You know, Harvey Milk famously told people you must come out when they were battling Prop 6. And I understand why he felt that way. And there are definitely very vocal activists in our community that still feel that way. And that's okay to have a different opinion on what to do. But it's also more important to recognize we're all on the same team here. And like, at least sounds like from this panel's perspective, we believe in the doing no harm. We believe in taking care of like your health first and then those around you second. But like, you don't have to tell everybody. If someone disagrees with us, listen to them. Have a conversation, have a dialogue. If they think I'm full of it, ask them why. And I would love to talk to them too, because that's how you sharpen your blade, is having those conversations with people who disagree with you. So
God,
like,
that is so you. Sorry.
What? For who?
Well,
Man that never loses.
to quote the Bible on an LGBT plus
Oh,
charity
no.
stream,
Oh,
as
yeah.
iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. Right?
Oh, the irony.
Oh my
You
God.
love-
I'm here all
But
night.
it's still a true sentiment, right? We're allowed to disagree with each other, and it's important to have those conversations within our community, because our community doesn't agree on everything, and our community is not perfect. We're still growing as well.
No community is. There's all kinds of divergent opinions in every community you look at on every topic. So.
And I do want to make space right now for also Tori to kind of contribute to this, because I know she had some thoughts that she wanted to share, and we've been kind of riffing on things for a while.
Yeah, I think the whole point about, you know, like people feeling pressure to come out or people pressuring others to come out is, I guess, more frequent that I see during Pride Month, because there's all these posts about, oh, like don't be afraid to be who you are, and I from an outside view, I can't speak on an inside view, but from the outside, it feels like there's this pressure for people to come out, and kind of what Ashley was saying, it's not always safe to do so. And I know like a few of my friends have said, like, I feel pressure to come out. I don't want to come out to my family yet, or even like my entire friend group. And then they start feeling like down on themselves. They say very hateful things to themselves and kind of go down that negative path towards themselves. So I just try to publicly be a safe space, or like try to present myself as a safe space and just promote it. And back on the topic of like, it's not our job or anyone's job to educate others. I try to share what I know, or have a conversation with someone to, if they have a different point of view, kind of like, why is that your view, and kind of learn from them. But at the same time, just obviously educating myself, and just trying to be a positive person that people can come to, and not feel pressured that if they're not ready to do something, or they don't feel completely confident, just let them know that it's okay. Like, you don't have to, like, especially during Pride Month, it's not like you have to come out, and like, you can do it on your own terms. You don't have to just because everyone else is. Even though there's a lot of people coming out during Pride Month, if you don't feel safe, or if you're not ready, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, and those are all good points in that. And I know that I am guilty of sometimes of telling students, like, it's okay to come out, it's okay to come out, but that's also like, it's okay to come out to me, because I am that person who's trying to be supportive. But a lot of times they explain the living situation of like, oh, I can't do that at home.
It's always okay to come out. It doesn't mean you have to.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
Everybody's timetable is different. Some people take 5 years for undergrad. I did. I changed majors. You know, doesn't mean I was wrong for like not taking 4 years, right? Look at all of it. That's.
Am I the only one who doesn't change majors here?
Listen,
I've changed about 4 times.
I dropped out and then
Oh,
came
hell
back
yeah.
to college. Like,
I got to
Let's go.
clinicals in nursing, and I realized I hated nursing. So
You were a nursing major?
You went so far.
Yeah.
you were so close.
Yeah. Well, actually, at my college, it happened year 2. We did it early,
Oh,
but
okay,
still.
okay.
Oh,
Gotcha.
okay.
But
Okay.
in any case, the overarching message here on this point, everybody, is like it's your own timetable. I have a very good friend who is out to maybe a handful of people. He's in his 50s. He was not going to tell us, like he just isn't going to tell people, and he's fine with that. He's at peace with that. So live your life, King. Like that. If you're at peace, that's what matters. That's the theme here. Is you need to be able to chase your joy, look at yourself in the mirror, and love yourself. Then you're okay. That's where you should be.
And one thing I also just really want to make sure it's put out there, and I don't know, Cora, Ashley, if either one of you experienced something like this, but if someone has come out to you personally or you've come out to someone else, don't be afraid to like verify with them before you post things on social media or go into conversations or public spaces with this person, like, hey, are these people you are out to, or do I need to stick to specific pronouns in these situations that you'd feel more comfortable with? Because I do have a student who is not out with her family, and so I choose to, in those situations, make sure that I either use non-binary pronouns when referring to this person so that she feels more comfortable, or I avoid using pronouns whatsoever, and she does realize that I have to use her dead name, and she knows that I'm not trying to be mean or anyway. I'm just trying to make sure that her secret is kept safe with me. And if you're not positive if someone's out to everyone in a group or out in general, don't be afraid to check with that person before entering these public spaces or having these types of conversations with people, because the last thing anyone wants to accidentally do to someone they care about is out them, because that is a special moment that belongs to that person alone.
Dalton and I have dealt that a lot as educators. We both had people come out to us, and the first thing I always ask with any of my students, I had a student come out to me as non-binary and then transmasc, and both times I'm like, okay, what names can I use in the following like 5 settings? I have various things I deal with, like emails to parents, administration, which teachers can I talk with about this? Because he had a couple safe teachers who he talked to, like the speech coach. And so I always ask, like, who can I use what with just to keep you safe? And Dalton, you probably dealt with the same thing.
It's do no harm. It's Hippocratic oath. Yeah. I mean, just make sure what you're doing is what keeps that person safe and keeps them happy. There's like a running joke in the capitals that like, who is this year's gay graduating class? Like McGee knows who they are when we find out, like, you know what I mean? and so people will come to you. And I think we've talked about this. That's an important responsibility. Those of us that are out and are like noticed and visible is people are going to come to you and they're going to talk to you. And that's why it's even more important to be visible, because maybe someone that's trans wouldn't be as comfortable coming to me as someone that's gay would, because they know I don't have that experience. So if someone else is there also, there's someone for everyone, right? So like that's why it's important to be visible no matter who you are, because someone is going to resonate with you and they're going to want to talk to you. We have it all the time in education. Like that new article just came out. It wasn't Forbes. It was I can't remember the study that was just done that found that nearly 1 in 5 students in the current like high school generation identify as non-heterosexual, and that is a massive number, because when we were in high school, it was like 2% of the population is what they always told us. Yeah. Like, no, 20% of the population currently does not believe they are heterosexual. That is a lot of kids, and you have to it's an enormous responsibility to not only be visible and to not only be a safe place, but to be a good example, to be a healthy example, and to realize whether you meant to or not, you're a leader now in this community. And like this panel right here, we are the people that people look at and go to as their like the token gay of the capitals, and like they know that, and it's an honor, but it is a responsibility. So make sure you do no harm and like create that safe environment for everybody.
Now, I do love how much we're talking about, but we also do have a schedule to keep, and I don't want to keep people too long. So I do want Dalton, you and I can riff on this for years. So I do want to wrap up with just briefly, we go in order, each person plug whatever you want to plug for what you're working on, your socials, whatever, so people know where to find you.
Follow me on Twitter at the Nerdy Bird. Nerdy is spelt with a 3 instead of an E, and you can also follow my Twitch under the same name. Other than that, I'm not really active on Instagram. If you want to go there, you will see things from a year ago, and that's about it.
And you're working on anything you'd want to mention?
I am currently trying to just do more broadcasting for other organizations outside of Boise State, as well as Vanguard Gaming, which is typically an organization that I work with. And I'm also trying to get an esports job, so if a college needs like a director, hit me up.
Hey, Wesley.
I was gonna say Wesleyan. When Ashley was talking about it earlier, I almost spoke up, but they are hiring an Overwatch coach for $40,000 a year. So
Do you not look at my Twitter, Artie? Come on.
Yeah,
I
Cora
don't
won't
go
hire
on
me.
social media very often, okay? The other issue is that it's like I gotta stay close to home for at least a little bit because I'm going through some medical problems, so they have to be willing
Yeah.
to like work with me a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
I did just go to the ER and was in bed for 2 weeks because I might have epilepsy.
Artie, talk with me more. Okay, Dalton.
yeah, I'm just gonna comment in Twitch chat. Follow Dalton McGee and Capitals Esports on socials. That's the two things. My last name's impossible to spell, so just look at Twitch. But yeah, I would say the stuff going on. This is about to be the best season the IHSEA has ever had.
Let's go.
Yeah, things are exciting. League of Legends is officially free from the vice grip of Play Versus, which we love.
There's some
and
tea about Play Versus not being Play Versus next year, by the way.
save it for another stream. We'll
Yep,
save it.
yep,
We'll get there.
Yep.
Excuse me
But
while I drink my tea.
yeah, right. But I would say our team's thriving. We had an awards night, which is kind of like the Grammys, except none of my kids walk on stage and smack me. And we were joined by Mr. James O'Hagan from the Wisconsin High School Esports Association, and he came down and he texted me the next day and was just like, "Dude, like you guys are doing it right. The Capitals are a shining example of esports." So I think that's a reflection of our kids. I get up on stage and talk about them, but they're doing great things, and yeah, just keep up with us on socials because we're vibing. I'm chilling, but they're vibing.
You have no chill after the way you explained joining esports and everything, man. You have no chill.
Yeah.
No, I literally. That's what I said. I want to be chilling because I'm not chilling.
No, Dalton and I are competitive on workload, by the way. It's just how we are.
Yeah,
Oh my
honestly,
gosh.
it was.
You
It
both,
was, it
you
was
both
really,
need to take breaks.
Yeah.
what? I don't know her. Anyway,
Okay, Ashley.
Yeah. If you want to follow me, that's totally fine. You don't have to. I'm on Twitter at Ashley M Design, all one thing. And otherwise, I'm not really like I don't stream on Twitch that much. If you likewise to Artie, if you have an esports job, I am looking and need work. Yeah, overall, I just really appreciate you guys having me. If you see me, I'm most likely going to be at Gateway Legends. If anybody's going to be around there, if you see me, don't be afraid to say hi. Don't be afraid to reach out on socials. I'm always down to talk with people and offer any advice or guidance or just have a chat, whatever. Same thing for Venom, which is Cora is helping TO, which is happening mid-July, which is an all women's Valorant tournament. I will hopefully be there as well. So if you see me there, say hi. And yeah, just support the stream, support Cora, support all these wonderful people. And yeah, thanks for having me, Cora.
And then Tori.
My Twitter keeps getting posted in the chat, so it's already there. Or I didn't know you're doing that. Follow my Twitter at your own risk. I'm very sorry in advance. But yeah, I don't really have anything. I love to meet new people, talk to new people. So if anyone wants to talk, just message me through Twitter or Discord or anything. And yeah.
Tori is underselling herself. She's one of the most friendly people I've ever met. Okay, thank you everyone for being here. I really appreciate all of your time. And then Dalton, how do we always sign off streams?
as Tivo always says, everybody, do your homework. Have a good night.
Do your homework, guys.
Ah.